Hi guys, and welcome along. This is something really different. So I think you're going to be quite amazed at this. It was something I was put onto by a Dutch chappie with having a look at this MSX that's been giving me a plague of problems and trying to work out the video side, and he suggested, oh, have you had a look at this? And I sort of thought, well, that sounds expensive, because I've looked at things like the F18 FPGA project, and at $170 odd US plus freight to get it here, it was way out of my realms of buying something for diagnosis even. So he said, oh, we'll try this, it's cheap, you know. And I thought, oh yeah, alright. So I had a look on AliExpress, and it can be built for around about 60 New Zealand dollars. Now that's a lot cheaper than 175 US. We're about 2 to 1, so it's close to 2 New Zealand dollars for every 1 US by the time you add in exchange rates and that. That's not to add in freight as well. So at 175, you're looking at, you know, yeah, 250, 300, yeah, you know, 350 maybe, landed with tax. We pay tax as well, import tax. So 350 bucks as versus to 60, that's a big difference. So I went along and I had a look at it, and it looked pretty straightforward. Just the software side of it was a wee bit out of my league, and I was a bit lost. But as you'll see in this video, it's a pearler, and I think it's something you guys want to look at. And this guy is switched on. He's doing some awesome stuff with these FPGAs. He's using these development boards. So grab yourself a drink and a snack, and when you finish this, get yourself an HDMI monitor for the old 8-bit PC, and let's get on with it. Hi guys, and here is something quite incredible. If any of you have had a really old PC, you've heard of the F18. Now this was a replacement FPGA that was for the TMS-99 series of chip. The problem has been that the FPGAs and the parts that they are using in the F18s they're past their date of manufacture now. They're not being made anymore, so they're getting more and more expensive and harder to get. Now this is a replacement made on a more common and up-to-date FPGA, and it's a Tang Nano 9K. Now this will replace the 9918, 9928, 9929 in any of your machines that run the TMS series. You can also convert it to a 9958 or 38 to go in the 40-pin socket as well, where the 9918 was. But it needs an extra pin pulled off of the PC, a line pulled off the PC for the A1, and that's something you'd have to do yourself if you wanted to do it. It doesn't come with instructions where to get that from, because all the machines work differently. But if you want HDMI out with audio, or VGA and HDMI out, this is the way to go. Now these are, you take your original chip out, put a socket in, and if you want a good socket, you put one of the tuned pins, which are the round pin sockets. You put one of those in, which is this type here, and they have little round heads on them rather than square ones. So these are more expensive, but they're a higher quality. So if you put one of these in on your board, make one of these up. Now you do have to order boards from PCBWay or JCB PCB, and you get 5 boards, and You can get 5 of each. Now it depends if you want. The version 2 is the one I am doing. This only has HDMI out, but for this board it can go into just about anything because it is a 2-part board. It has a socket board that plugs into this, which is very low profile, and then it goes off to a daughter board that has the FPGA and the rest of it on it. And from that I'm going to do it as a flying lead, which can then screw into the back of the case or be mounted outside the case somewhere. So therefore you can just plug a normal HDMI into the back of this and then goes directly to your TV, your monitor, or whichever one you want to do. There is no difference between this and the F18. The F18 only does VGA out. That's the difference. This does HDMI out, or with the version 1, HDMI and VGA. The version 1 is a little bit different in that it needs a breakout board to put the VGA connector onto. So I'll be doing that one later. I'm just waiting for those boards to come in. I didn't realize it needed the breakout board, so I can't do that one at this stage, but that'll be another video coming up. So anyway guys, this is the whole thing. So what I got is I got some extra 20-pin connectors. Now usually you'll buy the cables, and the shortest ones I found at a reasonable price on AliExpress. They're these, and they're really long. Now you can keep it that long if you want to, but I sort of thought, well, I don't need it that long, so I got some extra connectors and I cut the ribbon cable in half, and I get two out of the one. So I've done that. So you need one of these. Now these headers and the socket boards have 2 sets of connectors for 2 ribbon cables, but you only need one. They are identical pinouts on both sides, and I think that's just so you can mount it on one side of the board, or you can mount it on the other side of the board without having to cross over it, and I think that's why it was done. So it'll work with either of them. So that's the HDMI, that's the link cable that goes from the socket board to the FPGA board, so we don't need that. Tune pin sockets, and as you can see, this is I've actually got 5 of these in because I got 5 boards, so I got 5 in. 3 are gone. I have 2 left, which I may still have by the time this video goes to air. If not, they'll be for sale for if anybody wants one. Just get in contact with me. The Gerbers and everything are online. It's open source, so anybody can make these if they want. I think the chappie is either Dutch or Polish or something like that. His English is not that great to understand what to do, and I'm going to take you through this whole process showing you how to program the Tang Nano 9, because his instructions weren't that clear on what to do. So I will do this, and you know me how I do my stuff. I like to let you know every inch of the way what I'm doing. So I'm going to do that. So usually buy them off AliExpress, and you can get them down to New Zealand dollars, $23 each. So they're $23, and that's what you get. You get a little wee Tang Nano, and you also get it comes with a USB-C cable, which you don't need. If you've got your own, you can use your own, but this comes as a kit with this. And they come with a set of header pins. And these are the header pins that they use for doing this. Now, we're not going to use these. Well, I didn't really like these. These, to me, in the kit felt really flimsy. And I actually had some heavier ones that I bought quite a while ago. And so I had some of these which are a little bit heavier, and I thought, well, and they're a little bit longer. I find the ends where they solder in on the Tang Nano ones are very short, whereas these are a lot longer. So I don't know if you can see that in the video or not, but these are quite a bit shorter. So that's why I went, these are just standard header pins. You can get them in colour or black or whatever colour you want. So that's what I went with those, and I actually made some new ones. So those I'll put away for something else at some other stage. I'll put a full list of parts on this video if you need them. If you need to, just pause the video and write them down, or take a pause it, take a screenshot. You can do it that way. I'll even, if I remember, I'll put it in the description as well on what you need. And I also have a link to the chappie's website who does this. He has a few videos on YouTube where he's used this, and he's actually made another one I'm going to look at doing. It's called the Tang Nano Wonder, and he's done this as a cartridge board that goes into the MSX cartridge slot, and it allows you to have SD drive. It has allows you to play the Mega ROMs and stuff like that on it, but this is only for the MSX2 because it needs the extra RAM and that for those. But that's something I may look at a later date, as I said. But he's doing some really awesome stuff, and he's also that same cartridge that he's running as a 9958. He's got it set so it can run as 128K of RAM or 64K RAM, and he's got it set so generically it will run the Atari 2600 off the board. How cool is that? Over HDMI. So anyway, I digress, so we'll carry on. So you get the Tang Nano. Now this usually comes with some sort of a pre-programmed test program on it, but I'm not going to worry about that because we don't need it. That's what you usually get just in the box. Now I've done, as I said, I've done these up as kits, so these have all the extra bits in them. The version 2, you'll need 2 boards. That is the main board. That's the one that the Tang Nano mounts onto. And the other thing is with this, the way it's made, the Tang Nano has been made so it can plug on and plug off of this board. So if you want to go to a version 1, you can unplug it off this, and your version 1, you just make it up with the header pins on it like this board does, and then you'll have a stackable, and it comes up too high. It's quite a lot higher. That's why he did the version 2, because some people found it was a lot closer inside the machine to mount it. So he's made it as a fly-off board so you can mount it away from the socket, so you got more room. So that's the main board, and then as in here I've wrapped it up. That's the little socket board, and that's the one that actually plugs onto your motherboard socket. That one will plug into the socket on top, and then the lead will come off this side or off this side, and then it will go to this board, which has a plug here or a plug here either side. Now the cables are straight through, pin for pin, so you pin 1 to pin 1 is how you do it. And both of the sockets on both of these boards are wired identically. So the pinouts are identical, so it doesn't matter which one of the two you use, so long as you remember pin 1 to pin 1. That's all you need to know. So those are the 2 boards you need. PCB way, you get them, and I think it's something like $10 for the 5 of each. And then on top of it, there's your freight. And if you go with slow mail freight, it'd probably cost you something like about $15, $16 New Zealand for a set of boards. So, and I said your Tang Nanos are about $23, $25 for a Tang Nano. And the only other things you're going to need is you're going to need some Schottky diodes, and these are 1 amp ones. I think these are 1 amp 50 volt. I think they are. They're all in the parts list anyway. And other than that, all you're going to need is some header pins. Now these are the round recommended, the round tuned header pins. These are the ones that go on this socket board to go into your motherboard, and they go underneath. And that is just that, a better connection and a more sturdier connection. So yeah, get the round tuned ones, and one strip, one 40-way strip will do the one board. So you only need one of these for one board, because they just split in half, 40 either side, 20 either side, sorry. It's a 40 pin strip. And the only other thing you'll need for that board is a double pin or dual row by 10 pins. So 20 in total, 10 on either side. Now you buy these in strips, and they come in strips of 40. So if you get a strip of this, you go 10, you go 20, you have another 20, that's one strip. So you'll have one for the small board, and you'll have one, which I have in here, for the large board, and that can go on either side. Now if you want to, you can put header pins on all of the connectors, and if you're going to do that, it would probably pay to colour match them. So if you're going to do that, so say do a left and a right, you do one colour, one colour, one the other colour. So therefore you knew which was left and which was right, so you know which way around your header pins are. But I don't think it really matters. It's just, yeah, if you want aesthetics, or if you want everything the same colour. The only other thing you're going to need for this board is just a double single row jumper. And this is just two pins. One is for audio. The second one is for mode 1. Now mode 1 is only used, you can program these as a 9958, but you have to pick up the A1 line on the board somewhere, and that's what the mode 1 pin is for. But this is on this board, sorry. Anyway, so you'll need it for the audio. The other pin, you just don't use it if you're not going to do the 558, the 9958, sorry. So those are all the parts for there. Now this one here, you can solder directly to the board if you like, if you're confident and all your parts are good and your chips are good and all that. Failing that, just some cheap sockets. So you need 3 sockets for the 3 ICs, and you'll need one 8-pin socket for the 8-pin IC to go on there. Now these, as I said, these will all be listed anyway. You'll need a set of header pins, and this is 2 row by 4, so that's 8 in total. So you just 4 long by 2 wide, that goes on that board. Now this is for jumpering it for doing different things. So if you want it to be for one type of chip, another type of chip, etc., all the information is actually in the documentation. And then we'll need 4 100N, if I can get them, capacitors. And these are just our filter caps. These are just the filter caps for taking any noise out of the board. These are just little ceramics I had. I think they're about 50 volts or 100 volts, something like that. And you need 4 of those, and they go on this main board. And then there's just your 4 ICs you're going to need, as I said earlier. So that's it. The other thing we are going to need is for the Nano, is you're going to have to get yourself some of these female header strips. Now these are the ones at the square. Now don't use these for your motherboard because they're not very good. They're too high. And the reason why you don't use the square pins on your IC board is that the square ones are bigger, a lot bigger, and when you try to push them down into a socket, they won't fit and you're liable to break them or bend them or that. That's why you use the round tuned pin ones for that. But on these boards here, that type of pin is fine to go into that. So they plug in there fine, they push down and seat in. So these are the female socket strips, and these are sets of 40 as well as these sets of 40. So just whatever colour you can, mostly you get them in black, but you can actually get them in different colours. black is what I have, and you'll need more than one strip to do the nano. So these are only 40, so you're going to end up with a little piece left over, so you need 2 strips to do one of these. So I've got some more coming to do for the other boards when they're ready. But yeah, that's the problem with them. So anyway, but they're cheap as well. They're as cheap as the header pins to buy. So you know, you buy yourself 10 or 20 or whatever, stick them in your little box and put them away. So that's all the parts. So now what we'll do is I will clean this all up. We'll get on with doing the build. I will show you what these are. I talked about them a little while ago, about doing the IC legs and bending components. So I did find them, and I'll show you these a little bit later when we get into building this. Oh, and something that's just turned up. This is for the Yamaha MSX. These are the LVA 510s. So hopefully this will fix the problem with that machine and it can go back to its owner. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming out soon. Okay guys, so here we are. We're ready to start this thing now. So what I'll do is I will do the Tang Nano first, and that's just putting the female header sockets on it. That's the easy part to do. So yeah, so I think we'll do that, and then we get that out of the way, and then we'll do the rest of this board. And there is an easy way to do it and a hard way to do it, and the easiest way is to go to the lowest to the highest. So you'll actually see me doing that. So what we'll do is I'll just position these down so I can work out where I need to cut these pins, and then we'll go ahead and do it. And I'll pause it here and there, and then if I need to I'll actually stop it, and if need to I'll come back on and tell you guys what I need to tell you, something that I'm doing. So if there's anything you need to know, I'll jump back in with that or put some text on the screen for you. Alrighty, so sorry about that, that's just me. Just move that out of the way. I use that when I'm doing some of the boards, not all of them. So let's get on with it. Alright, I'll just move this out of the way and we'll go. So what I'll do is I'll just zoom in a bit more for you so you can see what I'm doing. What I did there is I just scored where I had to break or cut through this header pin, but I marked one so I can put the two together and then cut them, and I have a pair. So I'll just zoom in for you guys just so you can see this a bit better. And this is what I was telling you guys about a little while ago. You can get, they're called emery boards, and you can buy them from the chemist and the $2 shops and that. There's two types you can get. There's the black one and the white one. I think the white one is the coarser one and the black one is the finer one. And I just use them for cleaning up the ends of these plastic connectors and that. So it's just something else you can add to your toolkit. And that's just a safety razor. It's a single-sided razor blade. They're cheap to buy from the $2 shops that you can find around the place. So we'll carry on. Okay, one thing to remember is when you're doing this, the Tang Nano sits upright on top of the daughter board, so the sockets go on the underside of the Tang Nano, and the underside is the side that has the micro SD slot on it. Doesn't matter which way around you put the pins, but generally just make sure that they point down, so that when you actually sit this down on the table, the sockets are pointing to the table. And this is actually a good way to do these, and that they sit down this way. Then tag either corner on either one, and then make sure it's sitting down flush just by reheating them. You'll see me do it, and then you can go along and solder one side, turn it around, solder the other side. Now I'll carry on and do that, and you can see me do that. Okay. Okay, and that's that done. And the tip I'm using is a number 2 tip. So yeah, it's not the finest tip, but I like using the number 2 tips, because if I get anything with a heavy plane, I don't have to worry about, I've got to let it cool down and change the tips over and that. I just use it. None of this is heavy plane stuff. This is all very fine tracks and that. So you can get away by putting a finer tip on it. Which is what I will do later on when I finish off the TZX Dreno that I'm building. So yep, so that's done. So I'll finish off the rest of the build. Now this doesn't hurt it in any way when we go to program it, because we're only using the USB and the HDMI when we want to test it. This has a nice little built-in test screen, and that once we put power on here, we can plug it into HDMI and we can actually get the screen come up. So that's really, really cool. So and that just tells us that this is programmed properly and working. Alright, so I'll put this aside and I'll carry on and do the next piece. I will actually clean that with isopropyl as well, but I'll do all the boards together. Now this is the socket board. This is the one that goes into the motherboard. When you build these, the silk screening is up. The silk screening is always pointing up, not down. Okay, so the top is the silk screen. Right, now the first tool that I used, as you saw here, I put the this is the Schottky diode. Now they, as you know, they all come with straight legs out, so I'll bend those back out again. So generally they come in straightish like that. Now this tool, it's on Thingiverse, and it's actually a leg bending tool for bending legs on components like capacitors, diodes, resistors, anything like that that needs to be bent. And as the different widths for the different sizes of the different units, so depending on what the size of it is. And this one I know is down here, and so you just put it in and it should sit roughly in the middle, and then you just down the sides and squeeze your legs up the sides. Just do that with your fingers. And there it is, has it bent to you at the right angles. So you can do it with any size of the ones you want, further out, thin it together. Nice little handy tool. Okay, that's the lowest part that had to go on that board. That's why I put it on first. You saw me After I cut the leads off, I retouched it. You don't have to do this, but I learnt this off Richard from Learn Electronics Repair, and it does make it look a lot nicer if you just retouch them with a soldering iron and reflow over those. It makes it a lot nicer to look at. So these are the two pins, the two single header pins that go in. One's for the audio and one is for the mode 1, which is if you want to upgrade the Tang Nano to a 9958, you need to pull off the A1 off your motherboard. Don't ask me where it is. If you want to do it, you'll have to find out on your motherboard where the A1 signal is, and you have to pull that off there, a link off there, and put it onto this board, and that gives you the added connection to run the other screens that the 9958 does from the 99182829. Alright, I'll carry on with this. Okay, as I said before, you only need one of these header pins. If you know which way you're going to run your daughter board, this board has the notch at the end that shows you which way the processor sits. So that's the end. Oh, sorry, get it in the shot. That's the end there with the little notch in it, which would be the little notch on your processor, so when it goes in your motherboard. So if your chip would go this way in your board and you've got room off to this side, then you put the header pin here. If you want to go the other side, you can put your header pin here. Now you can put two in if you want. You can put one on both sides, like that, if you want to. Oh, sorry, drop that one. You can put two of them in like that if you like. It won't hurt the board, but you only need one to plug it up, because both of these are duplicate. They're actually duplicate connections. So if you want to save money and only use the one header pin strip, and you put one on here, and then you'll have some left over to do the little header pin for this one as well. You can do that, okay? So you can do it that way. So I'm just going to put one on here for now, and that's all I really need, because you can use the longer cable if you want to move further away. The only problem is if you go longer than this, and this is about probably, I don't know, probably 40 mil, 50 mil long, maybe a little bit longer. If you're going to go longer than this, then you are going to get interference, I think. So you want to try and keep it as short as possible. In his builds, he didn't have very long cables either, from what I could see. The other thing is too, is he's actually done a version 3 of this board, and the version 3 uses the Tang Nano 20K, and that gives you the 9958 with 128K of RAM, all the extras and that, and there's a direct HDMI plug-in for those, and they have the smaller pitched board as well, but like this, they have a smaller pitched board, because the sockets are, the pins are only 1.27, I think they are, rather than 2.54 millimeters apart, so they're a lot finer pitched. And he's made a adapter to go into those, so you put the socket in the board, which you can buy, and you put the adapter in, and the board for the Tang Nano 20K, and HDMI out as well. You know, he's doing some really cool stuff with the Tang Nanos, as I was saying before. But this is what we're concentrating on at the moment, because I have a few of the older machines running the 9918. The other thing is if the LVAs don't fix this MSX that we've got here, I've got a way of checking it to see if it's beyond the processor that's giving me the problem, or whether it is still the processor or before it. So that's one good thing with this. I mean, I can bypass all the after circuitry going to the video and RF out, and take it straight off the HDMI of the Tang Nano. So it's quite good in doing a diagnostics that way. But anyway, we'll carry on. So I'm only going to put one on, but what I will do is I'll rest the second one under here, because it's easier to solder it upside down if there's two rather than one, so it doesn't rock. So you'll see me, I'll put these two under here, but I'm only going to solder one of them in. Pretty much the same as I always do, like I did on the Tang Nano. Tag each side, and then I can go through and I can solder them up, and that's just to make sure they're sitting flat. Okay, so we'll get on with it. And there we are, that's done. So, it doesn't take long to do, guys, it's fairly quick. So the only thing we've got to do is put the tuned pin connectors on here, and these ones here, the round ones. And when you look at these, if you actually try and get it in focus for you, you'll actually see they have like a little metal brick or slightly wider piece to them on one side than the other. That slightly wider piece is the piece that goes towards the circuit board, so that's this side here, and so that would go on this side, and it just allows room underneath for the solder when it flows through to actually flow around both sides. So that's the side that I like to put through, and it also allows a little air gap too, so if there's any heat. So, but what I will do is, before I solder it, because it solders down the side here, I'll clean the bottom of this one up first. I don't have to, I suppose. No, I'll leave it. So I'll leave it, and I'll clean it up later. Now what I do when I'm putting these in, you need to make sure they're straight. So what I use is an old 40 pin socket, but the cheapy version of these, so it doesn't matter if the pins get bent. But I use an old 40 pin one of those. I'll just grab it, hang on. And so to actually solder these on, I put them into the board, and then I plug them into the socket, and then that way you know they'll line up when you go to put it into the board, because that's the socket you're going to put into your motherboard anyway. So what we do is we just get it, and we just push our pins into there, and they sit in there, and then doesn't matter which way around our board is going at this stage, because this is only to solder the header pins on, and we can plug it in the right way around when we get it in there. So, and that just keeps them nice and square. So we solder along the top. I mean, even if you got yourself some old sockets and that it was missing pins or broken pins, you could actually cut them all off and have it flat, and then just use it for doing this sort of thing if you want to set up header pins for things and that. It keeps them nice and straight. It's a good way of doing it. So anyway, that's done, so we'll carry on. And then we have it, it's all done. So, and then all we're going to do is just pry it off. And there we are. It's off. And that's our adapter board. And to go to this board, that's what it uses this ribbon cable for. When you do the cables, just make sure that pin 1 goes to pin 1. If you're making them yourself or if you're buying them, they need to be pin for pin. And so on the board it's actually marked 1 and 20. So red stripe to pin 1 is normal, guys. And then that would just push on there. And that's your daughter board, your socket board, sorry, which then this goes to your daughter board. One pin on here is audio, so this is where your audio in would go. And then the other side is, as I said, if you wanted to run the 9938, 9958, you've got to find the A1 line off your motherboard from somewhere to go to the other pin. If you don't want to do either of those, you can run HDMI without audio, fine. But that's that done, so it's all good. So I'll unplug this now, and then what we'll do is put this aside, and then we can clean this up later. Well, there you go, guys. So this is the end of part 1, and in part 2, which I'm bringing you very shortly, this will be a 2-parter over the Christmas New Year period. We will be building the daughter board and programming the FPGA and testing it out on a Spectra video. So join me along on that, and I hope you enjoy this video and the videos. If you do like these videos, please give us a thumbs up. The cat thinks so as well. It really does help me out. And if you really like them, then subscribe. But have a great New Year and a really good Christmas, and until next time, as I always say, ciao.